Currently, there seems to be a trend toward background investigations. And my suggestion to a new investigator coming into the profession would be to concentrate on background investigations. And when I say background investigations, I'm referring to background investigations of individuals and background investigations of business or commercial firms. If I were a new PI going into business, first of all, I would avoid the domestic relation type investigations such as divorce cases and child custody cases. In the case of divorce cases, we find that many states now have no-fault laws, and there are fewer divorce investigations being conducted. Also, we look at them as sort of a nuisance type investigation. People are emotionally involved in the investigation, and they are sometimes difficult to deal with.
We do a lot of different types of investigations in our agency. We do civil, criminal, domestic, various different types of investigations, and the domestic hits home in my heart the most. I see those people, they walk in my office and they're so emotionally devastated, you know. They're really hurting, and they're afraid. They know they need to be there because they need to find out the answers. They need to know what's going on, like I said again, for peace of mind. But then they don't want to know the answers because they know that it's going to devastate their life. It's going to change their life with possibly divorce, and if there's children involved, it's just very devastating to the whole family.
I don't particularly like domestics. There's a lot of emotions involved, a lot of people out of control a lot of times, and a lot of facts that are smothered or cloudy, and it's more difficult. And it's one of those times when people reach out, you know, and they don't even know they're reaching out, and they really want more than what we're supposed to be giving them. And sometimes that's okay, and other times it's rather demanding and rather draining.
In other words, I may do some work for attorneys. Okay, I may do it. As an example, yesterday I drove 508 miles to do an accident investigation. 6 people were killed. Worth driving 508 miles for it. Did the photography on that. I'm going to do some interviews on that, and I probably won't do another one for quite a while.
We have a large base of business and corporate clients. We also deal with a very large number of attorneys. The types of companies we deal with are public transportation companies, public utility companies, and firms on a national level. For example, one of the clients that I have no problem mentioning is the American Medical Association, which is located in Chicago. They have been a client of ours for 5 or more years. We have conducted a large number of background investigations for them. They are very concerned about hiring people who may tarnish the image of the American Medical Association. We have done work for national railroads such as Amtrak, other large firms. Generally, we're doing work involving industrial espionage. We do a fair amount of electronic counter-surveillance work, countermeasures. Many of the business firms are concerned about their offices being bugged or their telephones being tapped. We do a number of these during the course of any given year. Occasionally, We have business firms that will retain us for the purpose of surveilling their employees, where they have suspicion that their employee is involved in a business similar to theirs, and they are siphoning off business from their employer and have established themselves in the same type of business.
We have corporate clients and we have individual clients. So the corporate clients are usually business oriented. It's going to be background investigations, pre-employment investigations, fraud, some kind of malfeasance, something like that. The individuals will be sometimes sent to us by their attorneys, and it's going to be more involved with domestic law, custody, divorce, abuse. They would be our clients, and how they get to know us: yellow pages, attorneys, advertising on television.
I started going around in the morning cultivating attorneys, buying them breakfast, so I almost went broke. And then I started building a little clientele. I had to sell myself to the people that use me, that the public, that the attorneys, the insurance companies. You have to sell yourself that you can do it. And I went out on a lot of jobs at start with and just went out there and did it and proved it to them. One insurance company, I did 5 jobs free, just went out and did them and come in and gave them the goods and says, here, I just want to prove myself to you.
We work primarily with attorneys. I would say our clientele base is 92% attorneys, and the balance would be private clients. So I market very heavily with attorneys. I do a lot of flyers, I do brochures, I do speaking engagements, I go out and sell myself. In terms of, I offer training for their legal secretaries on basic investigation practices to save the attorneys money and time, so they don't call me for a $15 trace. You know, it's not that I don't mind making the money, but I like the relationship with the attorney of knowing that I'm willing to tell him my secrets. It helps me deal with his secretary, who is usually who I deal with, because she understands what I'm talking about when we talk about a case. So that's one of my big things, are the seminars that I do.
Recently, Sally Jesse Raphael and Vicki Lawrence. I furnished the reunions for what you see on TV. I've located over 50 missing people for reunions on national TV just since January of '93. In another week, Montel Williams has asked me to come up and find a father for Father's Day. Now, in addition to those that I've appeared on, there's a lot I haven't appeared on, but they contact me for other things. 2020, 48 Hours, Inside Edition. NBC News called me a week ago. Every major national television show has contacted me for something. In addition to that, I've been interviewed by Cosmopolitan and Good Housekeeping, and those issues aren't out yet, but they'll be out soon.
The thing I like most about being a PI is the fact that it's a fun job. And every case comes in as a challenge of one degree or another. And I enjoy being a PI because we have certain freedoms that I did not have as a public law enforcement officer. Being a public law enforcement officer, I had to comply with federal laws and local laws in conducting my investigations, but in the private sector, these laws are eliminated. Oh, look at that tree there. Isn't that some tree?
I like about this business is I work my own hours. I'm self-employed. I can choose my clients. I get to travel, and it provides a good living for myself and my family.
Helping people.
Helping people.
Absolutely helping people. They come to me with problems. They come to me with situations that's out of their realm. You know, they have their own lives to live. And they say, what can I do? How can you help me? And coming to them with solutions. Sometimes the news is not good, and that's bad, but it helps them. And that's what I like.
The satisfaction, working with the people, accomplishing the mission. Ex-Army guy accomplished the mission. I enjoy that. I enjoy it. This is what we need to do, and we get it done, and we get it done on time, within budget, and people are happy. There's some satisfaction to that. And people say, most people don't say thank you, but the ones who do, there's some satisfaction to that.
What do I like the most? I should say I like my boss the most.
I really don't have a favorite. I like finding people. I like putting puzzles together, the whole picture, and basically I know you're not supposed to put puzzles together. You're supposed to be fact-finding, and I had to separate the two as I grew. My knowledge base grew, and it really doesn't matter. I enjoy it all. I like surveillance. It's amazing. I could never sit still for 5 minutes in a room or in a doctor's office or at a desk, but I could sit in a van I have sat in a car for 8 hours straight and not moving.
The variety and the scope of the work, it's never the same any 2 days in a row. I like helping people. People come to us when they have no place else to go. I like solving problems. I like it a lot.
I come into work at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 in the morning. To me, it's not like, God, you have to get up that early to go to work. It's like, I want to get up and I want to come in here. Because I get onto the computer, I see what comes across the fax machine and requests for this and requests for that. And we have a stack like this. And the girls come in and I take a look at it. And every time that fax machine sends something over, that's dollar signs. That's money coming in. And at the same time, you go to a computer, and I mean every one of the people that I have working here are all the same. They like what they're doing, they like coming to work, and they like finding things or finding people. And you can hear in the office when somebody, Maria, supposedly, is working on something on the computer, and she's looking for somebody, and she's in a database. And you can hear her laugh. I mean, she has a giggle that, ha 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 ha, gotcha, And then, or somebody else is on one of the computers and they're working on it and they find somebody, and you can hear them, gotcha, you son of a bitch.
Well, I would keep doing it over and over again because I thoroughly enjoy it. No, there's not really any changes I would make. Not anything that's dramatic. No, there isn't. I thoroughly enjoy what I do, but it's not everybody's cup of tea.
I think it depends a lot on the investigator. Over the years, I've lived very well. My income has been extremely high. I'm probably one of the successful ones in the business. I get referral cases from all over the country, and I've been on national TV in various places, and it just mushrooms.
It depends on the individual, first of all. It's like the legal field. Everybody thinks that someone's a lawyer, they've got to be making a lot of money. Well, I can tell you right now, 90% of the lawyers are making 10% of the money, and 10% of the lawyers are making the other 90%. And that's who you need to deal with, by the way.
It is my belief that an experienced private investigator, without putting 100% effort into a career, could easily make himself $50,000 to $100,000 a year.
You can make this business any way you want to. It's a bottomless pit. You will never, ever, ever run out of work.
As you know, and my badge appears there on the wall, I started my investigative career really with the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C. My career was short-lived. Unfortunately, I didn't complete a full retirement. I retired after 15 years of service based upon a service-connected disability. And when I retired at the young age of 35, I frankly didn't know what to do except for investigations. So I scouted around, and it appeared that the place to go would be insurance carriers and become an insurance investigator. And the larger carriers I went to indicated, well, you're too old. We prefer getting someone strictly out of college and somebody that we can groom our way and mold them. And you've already been molded, and we want to do it our way. So after being shot down, I then did go in for a short period of time with a large collection agency and moved into a management position very quickly. And that has been a tremendous aid to me in the private investigative field, because I did, in fact, learn the art of skip tracing making pretext calls, which is so important in the investigative field. In the mid-1960s, I decided to go into private investigations. And at that time, of course, private investigations was merely somebody hanging a shingle and saying, "I'm a private investigator." And there were a few around the Washington area. Most of them would hang around the courts and tap on the shoulders of the attorneys, and that's how they got their work. They didn't advertise, but just solicited the attorneys downtown. And it wasn't too lucrative back in those days. And as the years went on and we got into the 1970s, I think that's where the private investigative profession really blossomed. Many people came into the profession, particularly from public law enforcement. And in our area, which is very unique, the Washington, D.C. area, people came into the private investigative profession from government agencies where they had served as investigators, or the military where they had served in military intelligence. So the influx began into our profession in, I would say, the early 70s.
There are many professional organizations. Each state has its own association of investigators, plus there are many national associations. There's even world associations, and I recommend those highly. The networking, the referrals you get from these associations, the knowledge you learn from other investigators, it's wonderful.
I would say someone coming into the private investigative profession should give very serious consideration to joining trade associations. And the most effective means of doing it would be to start with your own state association. Currently, 30 states have private investigative or private detective associations. This would put you in touch with your state colleagues and associates and give you the opportunity to assist with such matters as legislative matters, anything that would benefit your profession locally. But additionally, it's very important that you become affiliated with a national association. There are several that exist. One is the National Association of Investigative Specialists out of Austin, Texas, which is headed by Ralph Thomas. The second one is the National Association of Legal Investigators, more commonly known as NALI. NALI is a very, very professional organization. Their screening process is very thorough, and it has been around since 1968. And we often call upon members of NALI to assist us with work in other parts of the United States. Likewise, as a member, our name appears in the directory, and as a result, many NALI members do call us to assist them with investigations in the Washington, D.C. area. Should you do any international work or contemplate doing international work, it would be of benefit to join an international association. The one that we currently are affiliated with is the World Association of Detectives, which has representation in about 150 nations around the world. This benefits us in several ways. We are, of course, in their directory. This enables us to call upon people in other countries to assist us with investigations, and it also provides us with a network of people who will call upon us to render assistance to them when the need arises. So it works both ways. We can call upon them and they can call upon us for assistance, and it also generates revenue. So again, I say I would highly recommend, if you're going into the profession and you're making it a lifetime profession, to join at least one state, one national, and one international association. It will be very beneficial to you.
Sometimes it's important that we need to contact other private investigators. Being in certain organizations, they provide you with a book. When you have experience and you're a noted PI, or you become a member of an organization, you can receive addresses and phone numbers of PIs across the country and as well as worldwide, which you can communicate with. You can exchange jobs, which I mean, if a job comes in, it's not in your area, you can recommend it, refer it to someone else. Sometimes they'll give you a kickback on it, which is good.
On the local level or state level, generally the state associations have a meeting once each year, and that is for the purpose primarily of electing officers. But generally, they add to the convention, the annual convention, seminars. And these seminars are excellent because they call in key people from the investigative field, the legal profession, and other related fields. And you certainly benefit by attending these conventions on the state level. On the national level, an organization such as NALI, the National Association of Legal Investigators, has divided the nation into about 7 regions. Each region has an annual meeting at which time they have seminars, and then the association itself does have an annual convention during which time they elect officers, and they also have educational seminars. Likewise with the World Association of Detectives, they do in fact have an annual convention. Each year it's in a different part of the world. I've attended conventions in London, in Rome, Italy.
ATLA, which is the American Trial Lawyers Association that we're a member of here, they put out a monthly magazine called Trial Magazine. That, of course, would be an excellent magazine. It's very expensive because it's national. That would be a good magazine to run an ad in. But again, that's on a national level, and I just feel that unless you're prepared to handle it on a national level, you're wasting money from the standpoint that you're advertising in a national magazine for work that you may only want to do statewide. Now, the bar associations, each bar association in each state have a mainly monthly, sometimes every 2 months, magazine that goes out that you can advertise in.
First of all, the associations I mentioned do have publications. Your state associations generally have a monthly newsletter which keeps you abreast of what's going on within your own state. And it's important for you to be aware of what's going on in your own state. The national groups, such as NALI, do put out a monthly magazine which is about 40 pages in length, which is very, very informative. They have unusual articles in them, such as product liability cases, train accident cases, some really unusual situations that you would not normally work on a regular basis. So you're getting some specialized education in the form of articles by people who have worked these cases. In addition to that, in the NALI publication, can't see out that window, Joe. In the national NALI publication, you also have the opportunity to call upon its 900 members for assistance. For example, we had an investigation involving a burning case. A young child had gotten into a bathtub, turned on the faucet, and was scalded by burning water. And we placed an ad in the NALI Directory requesting information from any of the members who had handled a similar type scalding investigations. And 2 investigators responded with a wealth of information. However, in addition to that, they headed us in the direction of the National Institute of Standards, which had a number of studies conducted on scalding from bathtubs and faucets of various types. And this particular study allowed the attorney handling our case to settle the case out of court because of the immense amount of research that was done by the National Bureau of Standards.
Remember what's locally called SIRF. It's a statewide in Florida, Security Investigation Recovery of Florida, Inc., and it's 100,000 members or 100,000 licensees under Chapter 493, which is how Florida is organized. And it's a broad organization, like I said, security, investigation, and recovery. There are many other investigative organizations nationwide, even worldwide. again, they're an excellent resource. If someone is interested, contact them, read their magazines. NALI is another good one, National Association of Legal Investigators. I'm not a member, but they put out a quarterly magazine that I subscribe to and pay a good buck for every year because I feel it's an invaluable resource. For me, I'm still learning, and I have oodles of college background and 3 degrees, and I'm still learning. But that's again the basis of a good investigator. You always learn.
So you have the three. You have state newsletters that come out. You have the national publication by NALI, National Association of Investigative Specialists, also puts out a quarterly publication, which has stories and informative articles, but also advertises various services such as
what I like to call the gentle art of interviewing. It's a mode that you have to shift into by the tone of the person's voice that you're talking to. And without regard to any type of ethnic relation, just the tone of the voice, that you can tell what mode that you're going to have to shift your gears into in order to talk to that person to get that information from them. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You might have to talk to somebody else.
I would rather be upfront with someone. I would say anyone who is not a professional licensed investigator, be upfront. Say to someone while you're calling. Say, I understand that you know John Doe, and John worked for you for 10 years, and he's spoken very highly of you. I just thought I'd come by and talk to you about John, and leave it open.
Depends on the way you talk to people. You can't talk to people like a cop, because people in business have this fixation that they do not speak to police. They're afraid of police.
99% of the time, our business is straightforward. Hi, I'm Peter Crum. I'd like to talk to you about this. You don't have to use any pretexts. Pretexts don't always give you what you're looking for. A lot of people think that's the only way to do business, but most decent private investigators are still doing work straight up, straightforward.
The normal circumstances, and you need to be careful when you do conduct pretexts, because there are a lot of regulations with respect to who you can pose as and who you cannot pose as, and obviously anybody that is not familiar with that area of the law, they should probably seek some information with respect to that before they decide to knock on doors. It's very important that you represent yourself. You can obviously present yourself in a pretext form, but as long as it's done ethically and above the law, you can't go there, for example, and say you work for a known company as a representative, because you could get into trouble. But there's many ways of conducting pretexts, yes.
Pretext, of course. Doesn't everybody?
Because we pretext all day long.
I see people come into the office and, I should be an investigator because I found out all this information by making a few phone calls. Well, that's part of the job, but there's another part of it. What happens if those people didn't give you that information? How do you obtain it? And that's the only way to obtain it. Same thing obtaining a non-published phone number to an address. Say you have the phone number and it is a non-pub phone number. How do you get the address from that phone number? You can either use the database, but if it's non-pub and it doesn't show up in the computer, then what? You then have to call that number and say, well, fine, what number did I call, or what happened here, or some type of a pretext, but you have to be convincing with it, and that's the key.
Just interviewing techniques, one of the great ones is the erroneous conclusion. Okay? I tell you something, I don't know your middle name, I want to know your middle name, so I say, Mary Jane? And you immediately correct me and say, no, my middle name isn't Jane, it's Joan. Oh, okay. I didn't ask you what your name was. You told me because I used the erroneous conclusion. Okay. And so if I wanted to know where you work, I could say, you still working for IBM? No, I work for Harris Corporation. Oh, okay, thanks. And you get the information just by asking questions. Now, if he knows you're digging, and he doesn't want it to come up, and won't answer that question. In other words, when I ask the question, I'm giving you the wrong information. You want to correct it. If I spell your name wrong, you spell it correctly for me. Well, if you don't want me to know your name, you just kind of let it go by. And if you're not skilled at asking those questions, they know it's a probe and it comes at you like strobe lights. You'll feel that.
A few years back, we were looking for a guy that was a fugitive on a drug charge. And the insurance company had hired us, the bonding agent had hired us to find the guy. And the marshals were looking for him. The bail bondsman was looking for him, and we were looking for him. Now, we were getting paid a large sum of money if we found him. So we had 4 guys out on the street, and we found this guy's girlfriend. We found out that she had some big affair to go to at that time. And it was supposed to be this black tie type of affair. We assumed at that time this guy is definitely going to show up at this affair. Well, lo and behold, he was prepared to, but somehow or another, between the feds, the bondsman, and us, we spooked him, and he didn't go. However, in the course of the investigation, we found out what shop he rented his tuxedo at, what shop that he bought the flowers for her at. I got to the flower shop, and there was a little old Cuban lady in there. And she wasn't, and I knew she spoke English, and I speak both, so it didn't matter, but I was speaking to her in English, and she said, well, why do you need him? And I knew that if I told her the truth, that she would not tell me where he was. And I told her that we're doing some work for the FCC, and she wanted to know who the FCC was, and I told her people that control the airwaves for radio signals that go all around the country, and the frequencies, and that he was transmitting anti-American messages back to Cuba. Well, she got so pissed off at that she told me what kind of car he drove. She gave me a copy of the receipt and a few other things that she gave us, which helped us locate the guy.
Let's just say I wanted to get your driver's license. I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. I want to know who you are, and I want some real proof of that. How am I going to get to look at your driver's license? Okay? Now, you're a male. You're sitting in the bar. I'm going to send in my wife, Beverly, who happens to be a very attractive female, and we're going to play this stupid game called Who's Got the Ugliest Picture on the Driver's License? Loser buys. Okay? So everybody takes out their driver's licenses, and we look at the pictures, and we're going to vote as to who's got the ugliest picture in comparison to what the person looks like. Now, it happens, the reason I picked my wife to do this, she has a photographic memory for numbers. She can tell you every phone number she's ever dialed, and just is great at that. She's going to get this guy's driver's license and his name and his address just by glancing at it. We got it. And he's going to have it back. He's never going to have any idea how this good-looking blonde next to him found out all this information.
Sometimes in an undercover situation, we have to. You need a little acting experience. I'm not saying you have to be an Al Pacino or Dustin Hoffman or myself. What we do is basically have to portray a character. Whether you have to be a plumber, you're going to have to go in and act it out. Sometimes you're in a situation where if you're on a surveillance and someone come up to you and you're already burned, you have to tell them. You don't tell them I'm a private investigator on surveillance. You have to come up with something to say. And acting, just if you're streetwise, that'll come out naturally. Sometimes on the phone, we use it as a pretext. We'll use different voices. Personally, I can use another voice. I could say I am somebody else. It doesn't matter. You can be anybody. You can use a hillbilly accent, which a country fella, and we can use a heavy guy from Brooklyn. Sometimes I have to use a pretext. I'll call up somebody that might be Hindu Indian, and they will not speak to actually someone with an American voice will give information. So sometimes we have to incorporate certain voices on the phone, and actually sometimes it works, sometimes we slip up, but sometimes we'll use a voice, and my voice, if someone answers, I'll just do the best I can. I never traveled to India, but being around people in New York help me learn other voices. And for instance, I can do, hello, good evening. May I ask you, please, some information on Mr. Abdul? He is a friend of mine, and I need to gather some information because he's for employment. So you can learn to do anything if you just try. Also, we do other dialects. Maybe in French, we do my sister, she is so helpless. And there is such other dialects. You just practice, and you can get it right. Sometimes I'll do a female voice on the phone. For instance, I'll say, or an elderly person. Hello? Oh, I'm sorry, I must have the wrong number. I'm trying to reach an old friend of mine who's, I thought he still lived at this address. Do you know a Roger Anderson, or can you help me, please? You sound like a person who doesn't know what's going on, and people are glad to help you.
Secrets that anybody can use, well, it's a misnomer. You're saying secrets, but it's something I believe should be taught at the 7th grade level. All children should know about county court records, that what is in there. All children should know their rights as Americans to information. So the first secret I would say is find your local library. Find out what's in it, probably across directory, city directory. A lot of people don't know that. Reverse directory, where it's names and addresses on one side or phone numbers and you can crisscross. And this is great for people trying to locate someone who lived somewhere 15 years ago. For instance, I'm doing a birth mother search right now. I need to date back to 1969 in a small town here in Florida. Basically, I'm going back in time. How do I do that? I go to the city directory from 1969 and see who lived in that neighborhood and track them forward from there. Some of the people are still there. But that's a very, very basic, good tool to use. The second thing is use the telephone as much as you can. The front of every phone book lists things like chambers of commerce, city halls, business and occupational licenses.
Freedom of Information Act is for anybody. You don't have to be a licensed investigator or any licensed individual. You can be just anyone that seeks to obtain information on someone. And the Freedom of Information Act, which is a federal law, has designated certain areas of public records that are open to the public for either reviewing or obtaining copies. Accident reports. I mean, I'm not going to start here with what information you can obtain under the Freedom of Information Act. I will tell you that in the UK, in England, there is not a Freedom of Information Act. And when I first came over here, I was amazed at the information that is obtainable under the Public Records Act or the Freedom of Information Act. Now, of course, each state also has an act, like, for example, Georgia has an open records law.
And obviously, this is the United States, and if we did not have the access to information that is available now, you might as well have a communist state. There are several different laws, however, that cover information that can, in other words, the Freedom of Information Act is really more of a federal act and really doesn't really apply all that often. Statewide, for instance, in the state of Florida, there's Chapter 119, and that chapter is regarding public record information, what is available and what is not. That is more important in the state of Florida, for instance, for my business than is the Freedom of Information Act, which basically would allow me to get federal documents or information on Congress, etc., but nothing really pertinent. So in other words, the Freedom of Information Act is not as important as the local statutes in each state.
Anything that's in public, we have sunshine laws, everything's supposed to be out in the open. Okay. So any documentation that has anything to do with government is public information. You can access that and go look it up. Most people just don't understand how valuable it is.
You can write to the federal government in Washington, D.C. and obtain a complete copy of the Freedom of Information Act, and they will send you a copy of that without any charge.
And you don't have to buy phony information. You don't have to buy unethical, information you're not entitled to have. Because the only thing that's going to happen to you is you're going to get burned in the long run. You're going to give it to an attorney. It's going to get in the file. Okay? Here's an example. You used to be able to get from private investigators work history on an individual, how much money they made, and where they worked for 5 or 10 or 20 years. So the entire work history is reported to Social Security. You're not legally entitled to that information. But somebody was able to obtain it, and they were selling it. So your attorney asks you to get it, you're dumb enough to get it for him, and he's dumb enough to stick it in the file. So one day he says to the secretary, hey, make a copy and send it over to the other side. They've requested it all. Guess what shows up? This piece of paper, and the other side has got it.
Obviously, federal records, NCIC records, state-level criminal. I would be a little reluctant to have, employment credit information yet. That cannot be pulled by the general public. Because that can be used against someone, and the public has no need to know. I think the question is, what is the need to know? If you want to find out who your grandmother's neighbors were 20 years ago, if you want to find out who used to live in your house, supposing you buy a house, you find a diamond bracelet in there. You want to know who the previous owners were. That's a very valid need to know, and that's not a negative situation. That's what you can do with that.
You have the right to know.
You have the right to know. There is that one gap between the private investigator and the client, and that is, I'm asking questions for my client. I think I know what he wants to know, but frequently there's a lack of communication. I may not get everything he wants, because it's not my problem, it's his problem. So when you do the investigation yourself, you have that county clerk on the phone, you're in that records room, you're looking at those records. If something else crops up in your mind, say, oh, well, I wonder if he also did this, you just walk over there and you look yourself. Me as an investigator, I'm only going to do what you ask me to do, and probably not much more, because my time is constrained. So you, as your own investigator, can go much, much more thorough, can understand the situation much better, and get answers that you need to know.
If they know how to work the courthouse, they can go down there, and in most courthouses nowadays, there's a lot of people there. You just walk in and say, I need to find out about this person, and they'll tell you from what department to go to, and you don't have to be an expert to do that.
And the nice thing too, Mike, is that most of the county court record people, and I'm not just saying in Pinellas County where I'm located, but I deal nationwide with court records, are very, very nice. When you call up the clerk's office in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, or wherever it may be, 99% of the time you get someone who wants to help you. There are no stupid questions. You can call up these people and say, look, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to find out something on my grandmother who used to live in your town back in 1954. What records do you have available that I might be able to look for, and what will it cost me? These people are super nice. They really are. They want to help you. So don't ever feel, concerned that, oh, I can't talk to the county courthouse. Of course you can. It's your courthouse. You have a right to.
Each state has its own set of rules. In Florida, for instance, if somebody runs into you or you have a license plate, you want to know who owns that vehicle and whether there's clean title to it or there's a lien on it. If you go into the court, if you go into any of the any of the state-run places, that's the only place you can get the information. Show them your driver's license, say, I want to know who owns ABC 002 license plate. They'll give you that information, who the lien holder is. That's public information. That's obtainable in the state of Florida. Some states it's not. Massachusetts, a couple other ones, very difficult to do that. California, you can't do that anymore.
When you're talking about record searches, let's say public records, county, civil, criminal records, small claims records, that's used in a variety of areas. That can be used in locating someone because, of course, it will trace property ownership or it will trace lawsuits on an individual over periods of time. You can use it to background, let's say, a company to see if they've been sued a lot. We have a lot of people who do tenant clearances to find out if a particular tenant has been a problem with other landlords before. Of course, that would show up in small claims court. So you have things from traffic tickets, traffic citations, criminal records. These are all available on the county level in every county in the United States. And it's a wealth of information, it really is.
It's back to the courthouse. The courthouse, the circuit court and the county courts hold a wealth of information because of exhibits involved in the cases. It's not going to be in every case. I don't expect to go in there and open a case file and find his IRS returns for the last 10 years or his bank account schedule or, you know, criminal record or anything like that in every file. It's not going to be in there. It's just going to depend on the files themselves. And a lot of attorneys will, as a matter of record, because of discovery in that, which has to go into the court file unless it's sealed by the judge, you'll find that information in the court file.
When I access local criminal records, which is this county only, it will tell me what that individual did in a criminal sense, if anything, in Pinellas County. But if he murdered someone in Pasco County or murdered someone in Dade County, I'm not going to know about it from a criminal search conducted only in Pinellas County. To know that, I have to go to Florida Department of Law Enforcement, which we call FDLE here, and get a statewide criminal record check. That will give me every county in the state of Florida if that individual has done anything. So your scope moves outward, totally outward. The same thing now with civil searches. Unfortunately, there is no one civil database. So if you were sued in Pinellas County, which is St. Petersburg, and then you were sued in Hillsborough County, which is Tampa, the two are not mutually exchangeable. There's no reciprocity, and that is unfortunate. There are a couple of databases used by title companies that will list these civil searches, but they're not as complete. You really should go to each county that someone has lived in to find that out.
It's on a statewide level only. It's not available on a nationwide level except to law enforcement. And on a statewide level, it's not available in all 50 states. It's only available in approximately 20 to 21, maybe 22 states that allow it statewide. And it is available in almost every county throughout the United States, but not every single county. There are a few counties in Georgia and Massachusetts I can think of that do not release the information. They will protect the criminal first.
Federal records you can check. Now, NCIC, which is the federal computer, is off limits to the private investigator. However, law enforcement has access to it. But again, they're going to be risking their jobs if you use a source within there to get those information. And I would not use that information obtained like that. Best way to do it is to try to find out if this individual has been arrested or has had problems. Check the federal courthouse. Those records are public record. You can go in there and check criminal records. If you find a file, a lot of the times the U.S. attorney or the assistant U.S. attorney handling the case will have already included in that court file the NCIC record of all his past arrests.
So you could.
And that then becomes public record.
Washington, D.C. obviously is the place to search for records of any sort. Even state records are maintained in some of the public buildings in Washington, D.C. But we have a variety of agencies. There's a homeless person. You want that homeless person? Agencies that have a wealth of information. For example, the United States Commerce Department not only maintains commerce records for the United States, but even foreign countries. This is a subject I address as just a presentation I've addressed the National Association of Legal Investigators in different parts of the country, specifically on the subject of accessing information from government agencies. And unfortunately, most of this information has to be picked up manually. I mean, there are very few agencies that are computerized, or you can tap in by computer or by mechanical means. It's a matter of going down there and doing research. We often get requests, for example, from firms for agencies such as the Patent Office, the U.S. Patent Office, or Copyright Division of the Patent Office. And unless you're familiar with their files down, it's extremely difficult to access information from that particular agency, the Patent Office. Very complex, complicated. You get into some of these government agencies and you get into the research areas, and they're massive. I mean, you get lost walking around in the place. You can't find your way back out. National Archives is located in downtown Washington, and they maintain the census records there. They maintain such records as records from the various wars that this country has been involved in: Revolutionary War and World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and Korea, and so on. All the records are there for the various wars. However, in addition to that, you can get unique types of data, such as records from ships that came to this country many years ago. For example, my father arrived in the United States in 1914, and I know that the name of the ship was the Princess Irina. It was a German ship, and it landed in New York. So it was easy for me to access the name of the ship, the year 1914, and I could access the passenger list, and there I found my father's name listed. But there are many, many pieces of information accessible to you down at the National Archives that are invaluable. And the nice thing about the archives, if you go down on a frequent basis, you can go to the admissions desk there, and they will issue to you a researcher's card, which helps expedite getting data. If you go into the different sections of the archives, you merely display that card, and there's no cost for the card, and they will render assistance to you and actually help you get the information in an expeditious manner. But the treasure trove of Washington, D.C., and this is a part of my presentation, really the treasure trove of information is the Library of Congress. I mean, we're talking about millions of pieces of information in there. Just about every book that's been copyrighted is in there. All sorts of records. In addition to that, you mentioned city directories a while ago. They have city directories from the entire world. I mean, if you want to look at the address 22 Garibaldi Road in Rome, Italy, you look it up in the city directory, and it will tell you, who resides there, the phone number, their occupation, spouse's name, and so on. And they have just one huge section of just city directories, which is mind-boggling when you walk in there. But many, many subjects and photographs and maps and books, and it's just, as I say, I call it the treasure trove of information. Well, one of the things we have here is a National Records Center over in Suitland, Maryland. It's only about 10 miles from us, and that is a massive installation. They have government records from all the agencies there. After a certain period of time, an agency sort of retires their records and sends them to the National Records Center. And many times we're looking for records from federal government to go back to 65 or 55, and that's where we have to go. And they do have forms you fill out, and usually within one working week, they do have it available for you. Then you have the agencies such as your Federal Trade Commission, which maintains records pertaining to interstate, intrastate trade. Securities and Exchange Commission, which maintains a public record for business firms, generally large business firms, particularly those that trade on the stock exchange, but do not necessarily have to be on the stock exchange to be recorded in the Securities and Exchange Commission. So if you're doing a investigation of a business firm, one of the first places you'd begin would be at the Securities and Exchange Commission.
A lot of people love to beat the databases to death, love to get into the computers, like to search through records. They don't really want the contact with the attorneys. They don't want to have to solve the case. They simply want to provide the information.
There are, however, specialized services that deal with pulling public records. And sometimes it's wiser to use someone who's specialized in that field as opposed to you yourself doing it. I say that because the laws on the federal level change consistently, just like state laws and local laws do. And you want to be sure that the information that you're pulling is permissible under the current federal, state, and local laws. Unfortunately, those laws do change consistently, and someone who's specialized solely in pulling public records, I feel, would be more apt to be on the ball with respect to the current laws on that.
There are a variety of databases out there. It depends on the type of information that you want. A lot of state agencies now are getting involved with that themselves, and they are offering online services that you can purchase directly from them. It's a way that they can generate revenues. To give you an example, the state of New York, for a small fee, you can access their database and obtain motor vehicle information, driving record information, and boat information directly online through New York. Other databases are privately owned databases where they accumulate the information themselves, compile it onto either a disk or some type of a computer tape, and then they distribute that by selling it to people who want the information.
There are several firms in the Washington area that do strictly research in government agencies. And what you do is you contact them by phone, you contact them by fax, or contact them by computer, and then they'll return the information to you rather expeditiously. But they charge extremely high. Their fees are something like $75 an hour or even more in some instances.
If anybody new in the business, I would suggest contacting a public retrieval, public records retrieval service, such as IRB or any other company that specializes in pulling public records. It's amazing the amount of information that is obtainable in the form of assets and other financial documents on individuals and companies alike.
But there's really nothing harmful on the computer. This is if people get upset over right of privacy. What's on the computer can be found in any county courthouse. Basically names, date of birth, property that you own. This is not going to harm you. This is essential information.
In pre-employment, we also use data bank sources to verify information. It does save you a little time if you don't want to do the legwork yourself. You can pay these data bank companies, which we do indicate some of them in the resource manual, that will do this for a fee. What they will provide you with is past addresses. They could also do statewide criminal searches, which are helpful. And they will save you a little bit of legwork, and they are available to the public and investigators.
I could not rely on databases to find people at all. Forget about it. I mean, they're pretty good. There's such a thing as a surname search, but you need more than that. And especially when you have a fairly common name. You're just going to find so many people with the same name that it's going to be of hardly any value to you.
That's where you just have a social security number. You may have the person's name, but you use the social security number to run the search.
Access a data bank company if you can. They will put in the person's name, social security number, and pull up any names the individual might have used in the past, or other social security numbers might pop up. Then you can check these names with the courthouse records.
So your social security number is your driver's license number in many states. Other states that have other forms of or coding for driver's license still may use or put your social security number on the report. If you have a legitimate business reason for pulling a credit report, and I highly recommend getting a signed release also, of course, a private investigator can pull a credit report on an individual, as long as I said it falls under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. But the average individual on the street cannot walk into a credit bureau and say, I want my neighbor's credit report. I have a legitimate reason. It doesn't matter. The credit header is the top portion of a credit report. It falls under the same category. It does fall under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. It, however, would not necessarily require a signed release because you're not obtaining financial information. That's where the government that's what the government wants to protect, is the financial information. The identifying information is, they're going back and forth in Congress, is my understanding now, on whether that should be allowed or not, but at the present moment it is. Minimal information would be a name and an address or a social security number. If you have an individual who has a modem and a computer at their home, and they wish to access information, there are some state agencies that sell this access to these individuals. There are also companies that are private investigative agencies and database retrieval services that you can tap into and become online with. International Research Bureau, we feel here that the individual is better served by actual contact with someone. You can contact us on a toll-free number, you're going to get an answer. You're not going to get a machine unless it's after hours. So the answer to your question is you cannot access us by database. A little bit about our business. International Research Bureau was founded and started in 1986. We designed our company to assist law firms, other private investigators, insurance companies, general businesses in general, and the average citizen out there. What our service rep will do, the call will be put through to a service rep. The service rep will take down the individual's name who's calling, their mailing address, their physical address, their telephone numbers. Then they will ask if they want to pay for the service by Visa or MasterCard. The fee will be given to the individual. The Visa or MasterCard number will be written down along with the expiration date. And then they will proceed to ask a variety of questions to find out what the person wants, what they're looking for exactly, who they're looking for, what information they have on that person. And then the service rep will let them know that the search will take approximately 2 weeks, depending on the search. Usually locates will take about 2 weeks.
Anything you know is better than knowing nothing. When I first started in this business, I didn't know much about it. I read every book I could get my hands on in the Florida system, not in Brevard County, in the Florida system. They brought them in, and I read them. And then every time I find a book which I think is good, I buy that book, and we have it in the company library. I probably have 30 or 40 books in the company library that I make people read, especially after they screw something up. There's a wonderful book right here. And you notice I got a lot of books in my office. We use every one of them. The Guide to Background Investigations, okay? It'll tell you every state, by county, what is available, how much it costs, who to call, how you obtain it when you want to do background investigations on potential employers. This is used for employee screening. All the universities in the country and how you find out whether or not that person went there.
There are a number of books out. Again, your local library may have them. If not, bookstores will have them, or private investigators can tell you how to find them. One of the books is put out by a company called BRB, and it's County Court Records, which is what I had showed you before. This is a marvelous research guide. It has every county in the United States. It has a nice cross-reference as well. It shows the city. So if you have a city and you don't know what county it's in, you can look it up and it'll show you, well, it's in this county. Then when you go to that county, from there it tells you all the phone numbers and addresses of the courthouses, all the way up from civil small claims to criminal to felony, misdemeanors, what is required to get that information, what their hours of operation are, what the fees may be, for instance, $4 per record pull plus 10 cents per copying fees, and who you should speak to in these departments. I mean, I'm a private investigator. I know this stuff inside and out. I use this book. I have attorneys who call me about this book. Okay, the motor vehicle records are wonderful. Again, we have another book on it, which is an MVR series, again by BRB Publications. This is a nationwide directory. Motor vehicle records are different than county courthouse records because motor vehicle records may or may not be accessible to you as an individual. Certain states allow you to, certain states like Massachusetts and California do not allow you to have access, and that's an individual state's decision, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Some of the other things that are available to the public, like I said, either in the libraries or if you're calling an investigator or through an attorney's office or what have you, besides the motor vehicle books, is a book called Public Record Providers. Now, I don't think a lot of individuals out there understand the difference between a private investigator and an information broker. An information broker is basically a researcher. They are people who go and spend their time researching information, gathering data. They're not all that different in many ways from somebody who takes surveys over the phone. They could be genealogists, they could be any number of experts, and those are information brokers. They can also be public record providers. These are people whose businesses it is to get the information you want.
I don't understand, you know. It just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up, you know. It's you did it. I know that you did it, and you know that you did it too.
We need to give you a cigar.
I'm the coach.